is Cami Williams, and I am a software engineer and developer evangelist for Clarifai. And today I'm going to teach you how to set up a Java Maven environment using Tomcat as a server and working with the Java Clarifai client. So let's just jump right in. So the first thing that you're going to need is I want you to go to spring.io and download Spring Tool Suite. This will just make it a ton easier to work with Maven. You don't even have to download Maven when you use this. It's just all there in the environment. And if you've used Eclipse before, this is exactly like Eclipse, but just with some built-in tools. The second thing I want you to do is download Apache Tomcat. Now, I'm going to download version 8. This will be used for our server. You can do 9 if you want, but just know that I'm going to be using 8. So go ahead and download one of those. And then finally, I want you to go to Clarifai.com. Now, Clarifai is artificial intelligence in image recognition, and it's really cool, and you can go to their website and try out their demo. I'll just show you really quick. So I'm going to take this picture of a puppy, and I'm going to put their URL in here. We're going to use the URL, say that I'm not a robot. Okay, very good. And then this is what the Clarifai API does. So it takes my image, it gives me what is in that image, and it's very, very exact. And then you can also see that it has similar images. So we're going to be using this today. So in order to get that all set up, you're going to go to developer.clarifai.com. Go ahead, create an account, log in. We'll get back to this later, but basically you're just going to create an account. And then we'll come back to it. Okay, so I'm going to assume now that you've downloaded Spring Tool Suite and you've downloaded your Apache Tomcat. Now I moved my Spring Tool Suite folder into my documents, but you can put it wherever you want. Click into that, and then you can go ahead and open Spring Tool Suite. So it's just like Eclipse if you've used it before. If you haven't, don't worry, it's pretty easy to follow. I'm just going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Workspace. You can call it whatever you want, and I'll click OK. So Eclipse users, this looks exactly like Eclipse, except with a couple extra tools. So the first thing we're going to do is go over to servers, and then we're going to right-click, New Server, and then we're going to scroll up and go to Apache. And then I'm going to scroll down. We're going to do Tomcat Server 8. Now, if you did 9, like I said, I recommend you do 8. Right now, it doesn't have it for 9, but definitely do 7 or 8 would be the easiest. Keep it as localhost, keep it as the server name, although you can change that, but I would recommend keeping this as localhost. Click Next. We're going to look for the Tomcat installation directory. That's just this. We'll click Open and Next. We don't need to add or remove any resources, so I'm going to click Finish. Okay, and then you can see it shows up here. So this pivotal TC, we can just go ahead and delete that. Okay, so now we have our server set up. And if you double click on it, you can see that we have these different port names with 8080 is what we're going to use for HTTP. We also have modules, and we're going to add a module as soon as we get our environment set up. Okay, so now we're going to get into the Maven stuff. So I want you to go to Package Explorer, right-click, New, and then we're going to go to Maven Project. Okay, use default workstation. Now, its default is set on Quick Start. I want you to go to Archetype Web App. Web App will get us set up with a web project. If you want to do an app or something, I recommend starting with Quick Start, but today we're just going to work on web applications. So I'm going to click Next, and we're going to let that load. Your group ID is going to be who owns the project, aka you or your company. So for me, it's just going to be Cami Williams, my name. Artifact ID is your application name, so whatever you're going to call your application. So today I'm just going to call it Maven Demo, but again, this is your application name. Version number is going to start at 000.1-snapshot. Keep this the same. As you update your program, you're going to update this number, but seeing as we're starting just here, we're going to start at 0.0.1. Package, keep this the same as well. You don't need to add any properties unless you want to. I don't have any right here, so I'm going to go ahead and just remove that, and then click Finish. Okay, so now we have our Maven demo set up. Let's just go over what we have in here. Okay, so pom.xml, we're going to start with this. Pom.xml is the most important file in your Maven project. This is where all of your dependencies are stated. Now, dependencies, if you're familiar with Java, are jars. What's nice about Maven is you don't have to download or install any jars or packages. You can just put them in your dependencies. And you can see them right in here. We're going to look at the pom.xml tab though. This is the strict code. So as you can see right here, we already have JUnit installed. So that means we don't have to install the JUnit jar. We just have to insert the dependency, which is really, really nice. Okay, so that's pretty simple to follow. You can see this little red X there. If that shows up for you, just ignore that. It's not really that important. Okay, so now if you go down to src main web app index.jsp. Okay, now the reason why this is showing up is because we have to tell our application that JSP needs to translate to HTML. It's basically JSP is HTML, except if you're familiar with setting up servers before, this is where the server will input the code and then it will translate that code to HTML. So we can get more into that later. Under web-inf is our web XML. This source code is again going to help with that translation from HTML to JSP and vice versa. And then we have our dependencies. Here you can see all the jars as we include them. JRE system library is pretty standard. Okay, so now that I've generally explained our hierarchy, we are going to just jump right in. So the first thing that I want you to do is go to pom.xml. Okay, we're going to first add a dependency so you can kind of see how this works. And this is where Clarifai is going to come in handy. So let's go back to Chrome, and I want you to create your Clarifai account. Okay, so now I'm logged in, and you can see that we have to create an application. Now right now we're on a free account. The building is pretty standard. All it is images processed per month. So you get 5,000 images initially, which is a ton. So this API is really, really great. And as you move further and further in your application lifetime, you can go up. So it's a really good deal for the machine that we're able to use through Clarifai. So now if we go back to getting started, if you can see, it says we need to create an application to get our API keys. If you're not familiar with using an API, in every API you typically, I think pretty much always need a client ID and client secret, and then you have an access token. So that's exactly what we have here. And then it says we currently have clients for Python, Java, and Node.js. All of these are really simple and easy to follow, but we're going to go ahead and open the Java one. I'm just going to open it and save it for later while we create our new application. So all we have to do is, this will give you step-by-step how to do it, but all you have to do is go ahead to applications. As you can see, I have a lot. We're going to create a new application. I'm going to call mine Maven Demo, but it can be whatever you want it to be. Default model, keep it on general version 1.3. Version 1.1 doesn't have multi-language support. Version 1.3 does. We're going to go ahead and create that application, and then we have all of our credentials. The access token is something that you'll have to generate periodically through your application's lifespan, but we probably won't need it for this demo. The most important things here are just our client ID and client secret. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go over to that tab we opened, and this is the documentation for the Java client. Now this is where it just goes insane. All you have to do to get Clarifai in your Maven project is copy this dependency, go back to Spring Tool Suite, and then put it under your JUnit. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up a little. and then go ahead and save it. And that's it. Now we have Clarifai in there, and as you can see, if you go under Maven dependencies, we have the Clarifai API Java jar. So we didn't even have to install it. It's just this code that gives it to us, which is absolutely incredible and what I love about it. So now I like to keep this organized. So to write comments, you just do the little left caret exclamation point dash dash. So I'm just going to keep my Clarifai dependencies here. JUnit is not super important to me, but I'll keep it in there anyway. I'm just going to reorder this a little bit. And I'm going to name this one our testing dependencies because you can very easily test with JUnit just like you would in a normal Java application for Maven. So this will be my testing dependencies. And that is it. Now we have Clarifai in our application. So now there's a couple more things that we're going to need. Typically as you find errors, it's usually because you're missing dependencies. So something that I know that we're going to need at some point, which I can show you how to find, is the org.apache.commons. And then you can go to this Maven repository link, and this website is awesome. It will tell you all of the Maven dependencies that you need. So I'm going to do this commons lang because this is what I want to use, and then you just click a version, just click the newest version, and then it has your dependency right here. And then you can just go ahead, copy that, put it in. I'm going to comment Apache here, just so I can stay organized. And now we have Apache commons lang in our project, which is absolutely awesome. The next thing I want you to do is under web-inf, go to web.xml. Web.xml is important because it defines where you'll find your server logic and your HTML files. And like I said, the HTML and JSP translation is where all of this happens. First, we need to define what our welcome file will be. So our welcome file is what will open once we go to localhost. So I'm just going to add one. Now it's a welcome file list, so you can add multiple, but I don't really know why you would do that. And I'm going to have it go to index.jsp, which is what we have here, but again, you can do anything you want. I just put it in index.jsp. Next, I want to add my servlet. Now, there's servlets and controllers in Maven. I'll get into more of that later, but just know for now we're going to need a dispatcher servlet. So I'm going to go ahead and type servlet. And then in here, I'm going to name my servlet, so servlet name. And I'm just going to call it Maven demo. Actually, I gotta keep the same case in here as my project name. And then we're going to do servlet class. Okay, and this is going to be kind of long, but we're going to type org.spring-framework.web.servlet.dispatcher servlet. And every one of these projects is going to need a dispatcher servlet. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to need here is a load on startup tag. And then just put one here. Okay, cool, almost done. Next thing we need is servlet mapping. And this is the translation part that I mentioned before. So here we're going to do a servlet name, and then we're going to do Maven demo, same as your project name. All right, now this is the important part. We have URL pattern, and this is where that translation happens. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is just generally say a name. So I'm just going to call it welcome.jsp. And this is just an example. You can do welcome or you can do something else. You can also do index. And then we're going to do URL pattern. And I want this welcome.jsp to translate to welcome.html. And then finally, we're going to say our final URL pattern is star.html, which is saying that anything that ends with HTML is also JSP. It will follow this mapping. Okay. And order does matter here. Real quick, I'm going to change my display name to Maven Demo. This will just show up when you run the program. If you hover over this, it's saying the same thing. I already have that now, so I'm just going to ignore that and it'll probably go away later. Next thing that I want you to create is another file under web-inf. So we're just going to go new file, and you have to do this. This is going to be your project name -servlet.xml. Okay, now in this file, you're going to define your controller and finalize the mapping between that JSP and HTML. So I'm just going to pause the video, add those things, and then come back. Okay, so I added a few of these things. These are just Spring Framework stuff that will help it compile a little easier. Okay, let's get right into it. The first thing that we're going to need is a context component scan tag. Base package is going to be your application type, so mine is Cami Williams, or your group ID rather. Then your artifact ID, which is going to be Maven Demo for me, and then do .controller. Now this is going to say, hey, we have a controller, just, look for it. Okay, cool. So we actually don't need this if we just add this slash at the end, which is great. Okay, so next we're going to need to create a bean. So we're going to do bean ID multi-part resolver. Okay, next is going to be our class. And then this is another Spring framework that will make us make our project a lot easier to work with. So we're going to do .web.multipart.commons, and then we're going to do our commons multi-part resolver. Again, just another way for it to easily compile. Okay, now last bean that we're going to create is bean ID, call it view resolver. Okay, and then in this we're going to add our class. We're going to do again org.spring framework.web.servlet.view.URL based view resolver. Okay. And now in this tag, I want you to add a property, name equal to view class, value equal to org.spring framework.web.servlet.view.jstlview. Okay? Next property I want you to add, and these ones are the most important ones, we're going to add a property, name being prefix. Okay? And then one more property, name being suffix. Alright, now in here, the prefix value, which is where all of your files are going to be, is going to be web-inf/JSP. Make sure you add a slash at the end and a slash at the beginning. Now the suffix is, again, what it should look for, and then we're going to do .jsp. Save it, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, before we forget, we got to create this JSP folder. This is where all of your other pages are going to go aside from your index.html. So create a folder, just call it JSP, and finish. That's where all your files are going to be. So, okay, if we close that, typically, more likely than not, you're going to use a couple frameworks in your web application, and you're going to have images. So this part is really easy. All you're going to have to do is to create a file that's called frameworks, and using frameworks here is just like using it normally. You're just going to be calling it from that frameworks folder, and then we're going to create an images folder as well for any images you want to use in your application. Now, let's talk a little bit about JSP. So, for the most part, these files are written exactly like HTML. The most important difference is going to be the use of forms and the use of models. Okay, so now models are tags that don't look like HTML tags, but they are taken from your actual controller. And the controller is where the Java logic will actually go. We're going to get more into that later. So now, a model looks exactly like this. So all I'm saying is this bracket and $sign is, this bracket is going to signify the start of a model, the $sign is going to signify the start of the model name, and the closing bracket is the end of the model. Okay, so now a form is a little tricky to understand. A form, there are two types that you can have that I'm going to go over. The first one is a servlet type, one that calls the servlet. The second is a controller. Now, I know you're probably wondering, okay, what's the difference between a servlet and a controller? For me, a servlet this is the way I understand it. A servlet has two functions, a get and a post, and a controller can have multiple. For a controller, whatever JSP or HTML files you have, the controller has to define a function for each of those. And then for a servlet, it just has two functions, get, post, and then sometimes put. So I usually use a servlet for authentication things like logging in or credit card information or things like that, and then a controller for general standard logic. So now to call a servlet, all you have to do is type form action, the name of your servlet, so I'll just call mine login servlet, and then the method. Method is going to be get, post, or put. Now, typically I don't do put at all. I think you actually have to download a dependency in here for put, but I'm not sure. You might have to double check me on that. But let's just say we're going to use post. And then you can also have a style, you know, just like any typical HTML would. And then in here, you must, in order to make this form work, have anything. It could be a button, it could be a link, it could be an input, but the type must be submit. And when this object is used or acted upon, it will call the login servlet's post method, which is actually really nice. And then I'll just have value equal to login, but we'll check more into that later. Okay, now the second form type, that controller form, is a little different. So we'll look into it later, but methods in a controller can have either a get or a post functionality. So I'll just do method get. The next thing that this would need is an action. And this action is going to say what page to go to next. Now typically you're only going to call the controller when you're moving from page to page. So the action would be whatever next page we go to. So let's just say the next page we'll go to is our settings.html, and we can make that later. That's another important thing. Whenever you're defining something in a JSP file is to moving into another page, it's not .jsp, it's .html. Okay, and then the command name is going to be the function name that you're looking for. So this function name would probably just be go to settings, we'll just call it. And then that's it. And then you can add other tags like a style or something like that. And then similarly with this, you're going to just need something that says that this form is submitted. So I'll just call this settings. And that's about it. I want to make sure you're all caught up. So all we did now is add the Tomcat server, add a couple dependencies in our pom.xml, add some servlet mappings in our web.xml, and then add again some properties in our Maven demo-servlet. And then finally, we added a couple things to use in our index.jsp. So if you're all caught up at this point, let's get into the fun stuff, the challenging stuff, the stuff that makes you just want to cry, the server stuff. Okay, so let's click on Maven Demo. You're going to right-click, New Package, and we're going to call it, I want the source folder to start at Maven Demo, and then we're going to do src .main.java .launch. The first thing we're going to create is our launcher. And then we will click this. Okay, so now we have that done. Now go click New Class. Just like you would write a normal Java project, I'm going to call this launcher. Make sure you spell it right. Okay. Alright, so now we have launcher. So we're going to need a couple things here. And this is pretty typical for launchers. It's going to be pretty much the same for you. So once you have this done, you can use it across all of your Maven projects. So the first thing that I want to install, important here, is Apache Catalina Startup Tomcat. Now, this is going to be red because we haven't included this dependency yet. So all we have to do now is click over here, copy that. Let's go up here, Google it. We're going to do Maven. We'll click on that, and we have our dependency right here. It's that simple. So then we just go to our pom.xml. This is an Apache dependency. We'll add that, save it, and now we're good. It's that simple. It's so cool. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to need to import is just a java.io file. Okay, great. Alright, so now we're going to create a main method. And then we're going to do throws exception, because we're going to have something that can throw an exception later. Okay, so now create a string. I'm going to call mine web app directory location. And I'm going to say that my web app is under main web app. I'll show you more of this later, but this is just the setup we're going to use. Let's create a new Tomcat object. Okay, next we're going to create another string, call it web port. Get the environment, and just call it. Let's just type in port. Okay, so now we have to check if it's null, meaning if it didn't work. So if the web port is null, or if the web port is empty, default to 8080. Meaning if I haven't already defined it, or if I haven't pointed to another one, just go to 8080. Okay, so now we'll set that port in Tomcat. Do integer.value of web port, because web port comes out as a string, but it will always be a number, so we don't have to worry about that. Then we're going to do tomcat.addWebApp. In here, I just want my web app to be listed under slash. Okay. Reason being is because if I don't do this, it will do localhost /Maven demo /index.html. I just wanted to do localhost/index.html. But you don't have to do this part, but I recommend that you do. So we're going to do a new file web app directory location that's just leading to here, and then get the absolute path of that. And then I just want to print it to make sure I can see it. System.out.println, and I'll just say configuring app with the base directory. That's pretty standard. And then we're going to do a file. And then do web app, yep, their location dot get absolute path. Almost done. Last couple things we need to do is start Tomcat, and then Tomcat get server dot await. All right, and that's our launcher. Okay, so this is what's going to get our web app started, which is pretty cool. Next thing I want to create is the servlet that I was talking about before. Now you don't need a servlet if you're not going to do any like confidential stuff, but I'll just get it set up for you just so you know how to get it set up and you can add some logic later. Okay, so under this same folder, I want you to add a new package. And you don't have to do this every time, but I like to just so that way I can easily organize all my code because these projects can get really big really fast. So I'm just going to create a servlet package. And then under here, I'll create a new class, and I'm going to call this login servlet. Let's just say we're going to have a login. Okay, now, in order to define this as a servlet in your project, you're going to want to go back to web.xml, and we're going to add a new servlet mapping. So, what I want you to do is type servlet, just like how we did before. I'm actually going to copy this over, and we're going to do something very similar. Okay, so I'm going to call this login servlet after my class name. It's going to be located under my group ID, my artifact ID, my servlet package, and then its name. Okay, I don't need this load on startup. Okay, now servlet mapping. The name is login servlet. And then URL pattern. As you add more and more servlets, this number will increase, but just call it serv1. And if you create a new servlet, serv2, serv3, so on and so forth. You can start at 0, but why do that when you can do 1? Okay, great. That's it. Now our login servlet is recognized by our project, so we can start writing it. So the first thing we're going to need is an add tag. We're defining this as a web servlet, and it's going to be called the same thing that we've always called it, login servlet. Now this name needs to match what's in your web.xml, and it's just a lot easier if you have it match your class name. Why make it harder than it needs to be? Next thing, I want this to extend an HTTP servlet because this is a web project. And as you can see, we're already getting some red. So I'm going to go ahead and import that, import this. Okay, great. All right, so let's create our constructor first. So public login servlet. And then just call super here because we're just extending HTTP servlet. Okay, great. Now we have our do get and do post functions. So let's do protected void, call it do get because we want to follow the HTTP servlet. First parameter is servlet request. Next one is response. And then this function can throw a servlet exception and an IO exception.
Matching places.
And then an IO exception. And then we're just going to copy that and have the same for do post. Okay, let's import some stuff over. This is throws actually, sorry about that. Servlet exception, IO exception. All right, that's it. Our servlet is set up. I'm not going to run into this much more, but this is basically all you have to do. So now if we go back to the JSP, when you click this login button, it'll call this function. If I had a get here, it would call this function. So yeah, that's pretty easy, pretty great. Very easy to understand. You can have other functions in here, I'm pretty sure, but it's not really standard to, obviously you can have helper methods, but typically to keep it clean, keep it as do get and do post and add more servlets. That's my own opinion. If you don't agree with that, sorry. All right, now the most fun and challenging part, let's write the controller. This is where the bulk of your logic is going to go typically. At least that's where I put the bulk of mine. So let's just dive right in. Let's create a new package here. We're going to go up to src main Java, create a new package. Go ahead and call it controller. All right, let's create a new class. We're going to call it Maven Demo Controller. Typically, you'll only have one controller in your project, and it will be the same name as your project plus the word controller. You can have more, but why would you do that? Okay, so first thing we're going to need, again, we're going to have to add some dependencies, but we'll add them along the way. We're going to want to do an @controller tag, defining this as a controller. Okay, let's hover over that, see if it can find it. It can't. So let's go ahead, get that dependency, @controller Maven dependency. Okay, click the newest release. Copy that dependency, go back to POM. This isn't an Apache or Clarifai dependency, so I'm going to go ahead and add Spring dependencies. Okay. Let's have that. So when we save that and go back to our demo controller, it's building. Looks like we're going to have to import. Great. Okay, awesome. Now, you don't need a constructor for this type of class. This is where I was saying before, every page that you create is going to have a function in this method. So let's do index first. So I'm going to do public. Model and view is going to be what we're returning. We're returning a model and a view of what we're going to see. And then I'm just going to call it handle index. I just usually name all of my functions after what the file is called. So index.jsp is going to be handle index, settings would be handle settings, and so on and so forth. So I'm actually going to call this handle settings. Okay, so now our parameter is going to be a model map. That's just typical. And then we are going to return a new model and view. And then I'll fill this in later, but we're going to do index for the page that it's going to. And then here, if you remember our model, I called our model message. So I'm going to put message here that's saying look for the model that's called message. And then the last one is going to be what is put in there. So if I made, let's just say, string str, and I can have it say Cami is here, and I put that string str here, that means that this text is going to show up right here on our file, which is pretty sweet. Okay, let's import some stuff. Model and view, and that's it. Up here, we gotta create a request mapping tag. Now that value is going to be what our page is called, so that's going to be /index. So that means that when this page is clicked on, it will be localhost /index. And then the method, this is where you define whether it's a get or a post. So right now this page doesn't exist, so it's not going to work. But if I change this to index.html, it can just refresh our page for us. So I'll just call this refresh. All right, now let's get into the Clarify part, the really fun part. This is the best part of this tutorial. If you go to the Clarify GitHub and we continue scrolling down, this is all the code that we need, which is awesome to get really, really cool tags. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to put that here. Okay, so now we already have our Clarify client in there, so we can just copy that over. Recognition results, we're going to have to get that dependency. Looks like we're going to have to import file, import list, we'll do util, and then tag is going to be tag from the Clarify API. Recognition result is from the Clarify API. We actually can already get that. Recognition request is from the Clarify API. And then we'll define our app in secret. Okay, so I'm going to create static variables to define those. So private static string app ID, and then string app secret. Okay, so now let's go back to our application. We're going to copy the client ID, put it here, copy the client secret, put it here. Okay, so now the file. Now, the Clarify client can take a URL or a file. This file can be in my file path, or I can actually have them upload a file or give me a URL. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to create a new function, and we're going to do handle URL, and then we're going to do handle, handle URL, then we're going to do handle file upload. Okay, and then I'm going to do submit. Here I'll just write URL upload. Here I'll just write file upload. Okay, now for file upload, I'm going to create an input type of file. I'm going to name it, we'll just call it pic for now. I want to accept images only. Clarify can also accept video, but for now I'm just going to worry about doing images. Okay, so great. Now under our SRC main web app, I'm going to create a new file in .jsp. See, it's just going to be a file. And I'm going to call it, what did I say? Upload.jsp. Okay. I'm going to just copy this over to make it easy. And then I'm going to show the tags here. And then I also want to show that image. If I want to add multiple models into my JSP, do model.message, and then I can do, for example, model.image. And then this is where I want to show the picture that I just uploaded. So I'm just going to do image src is equal to this, and it will still catch that, which is nice. And then, yeah, we'll just keep it like that. Okay, so now let's go back to our controller. Right now I don't need this anymore, but we're going to need it for upload. So I'm just going to name that upload. We'll call, what do we call that function? Handle file upload. It is a post. I can get this out of the way. Okay. Alright, so now I've got Clarifai. So in here is where I want to put the actual file I'm going to do. This will give me the metadata for the tags, and then this will actually give me all the tags, and it's going to print them along with the probability. You can see how that's laid out on the website, which is really nice. If you go to API reference and then tagging, scroll all the way to the bottom, this is the return metadata. So as you can see, it gives you the list of 20 tags and then their probabilities of that tag being in the image, which is really nice. So that's what this is doing here, getting the names and getting the probability for that tag. Right now I just want to print the names. So this code, I'm going to switch it, we'll call our new string message. I'm going to list the tags in there. And then I'll just do message plus equals tag and then a space. I'm not going to worry about the probability, but that's how you would find the probability. And then here, for my model, I'm just going to do model. I'll create a model. We'll call it, we need to create a mapping between string and string to create our model. We'll call it model, new, we'll create a hash map, string, model.put, and then under message, I want to do message, and then model.put, what did I call it? Image. I'm going to put image. Okay. And we'll create a string image to get that src. Okay. Import that. Alright, great. So now we have it set up to get the message and the image. Now I want to get what was uploaded on that previous page, this pic. So all I have to do here, it gets a little complicated, especially getting that file and not actually having to download it. So in my parameters, after this model map, I'm going to request a parameter. It's called pic, that was what we named it, and it's going to be of type multi-part file. Now I actually need to add that in here under my post. I need to encrypt type equal to multi-part, and then we're taking that form data. Oh. Okay, great. Alright, so then this will be a multi-part file, and then we'll call it our file. Now I'm going to do a try-catch block here. So let's try if the file is not empty. I'm going to use string builder to help me do this. And then I want to do sp.append. and I'm just going to get the data now. And the data doesn't make me have to download this file. So, and that's going to be just an array of bytes. So I'm just going to say standard. It's going to be a PNG because that's easily convertible. And that's also what phones convert their images as. So if you're going to create this as a mobile application, especially do PNG. Otherwise, you'll have to find that distinct type and do JPEG, GIF, so on and so forth. Okay, and then we'll do sp.append string utils, new string. We're going to have to include a dependency here for base 64. We'll do encode base 64. This is again just something that's standard that you get to learn. Get the bytes, comma false. We're going to not do Java util or Apache Catalina. We're going to go get a new dependency. So I want you to go here, and I want you to do Apache dot, let's see, I believe it's commons dot codec dot binary base 64 Maven. Let's get that. So we're going to copy that, go to our POM, and then this is something that's different. Well, actually, it is an Apache, so we'll put it under here. Okay, save that, go down to base 64, and we're going to import that from the common codecs binary. And then if that works, I want you to go in here. Well, this is where we're going to put Clarifai stuff. Go ahead and do that. And then under this file part, just do new recognition request, do file.getBytes. The reason why we had to do this was so that way we could show that image one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and do for image, we're going to have that equal to sb.toString. Okay, and then here we'll just do a simple catch, and we can do just set it to null pointer, and then do we can make message equal to there was an error. Okay, great. Import map. All right, that's the logic, and I'm pretty sure that this will work. We can do add throws for that. Okay. All right, yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is going to work now. So let's go ahead and run it. We could put null pointer exception here just to make it cleaner, but you know, I want this message to be caught. Okay, so now we've got all this stuff done. Hopefully it's all working and nice. If not, we'll find out. Now, if we're lucky, we can just go ahead and drag this project onto Tomcat server localhost. And then if you double click on it under modules, you can see that we're under Maven demo. Now, I want to switch this. I want to edit it and make the path just be a slash, because if you remember, that's what I set it to before. Okay, now Maven demo is synchronized, so let's go ahead and run it. Let's save that. Cool, looks like it's working, and we can see by this being recognized. Now let's go and check out our localhost. And oops, I accidentally wrote this wrong. So go back, switch it to this. We're gonna switch this here and here. Okay, cool. Save that. Let's restart our server. Okay, great, those were recognized. Now let's refresh this. All right, good, that looks good. We'll put in the puppy picture, submit it, and we have our tags, yay! So that's great. We have the image showing up great and the tags showing up really well. These tags are absolutely amazing. That's it for this tutorial. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and thanks for watching. Bye!